particularly because the bill we're signing today is going to be really great for the teachers in the state of Florida. And we couldn't have done it without some of the great members of our legislature. And I'd like to recognize them. I think I've seen most of them, although when you wear the face mask, sometimes it's like, you don't get the full out of their jib. But Senate President Bill Galvano has been instrumental in helping us. Senator Bradley has been a terrific ally. Senator Stargell, is she here? Oh, good. She's been great on education. Senator Flores, thank you for all your support. And then we have Representatives Danny Perez, Ana Maria Rodriguez, Bush, Representative Bush here, Vance Al Lupus, Representative Omfroy, where are you here? Oh, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Representative Oberdorf, Mary Lynn Magar, and Representative Anthony Rodriguez. And so they all were a part of this. When we were going into the legislative session and I was going around laying out my agenda, one of the pillars of what we wanted to accomplish was we wanted to take Florida from number 26 in the nation for average minimum teacher salary to the top 5. And to do that, that obviously required policy. It also required a lot of financial commitment. It was not something that a lot of people thought necessarily could get done. Even some of the people up here, may have had a little bit of misgivings about it at times, just because when you're dealing, there's only a limited amount of dollars and you got to make tough decisions a lot of times. But we really thought it was important to do that. And what ended up evolving, the proposal I put out, and Commissioner Corcoran was an instrumental part of that, was great, but I think the legislature actually made it better. So what we have today, what we'll be signing, is a bill that will provide $500 million directly to teachers, all public school teachers, school district or charter, and it will take Florida from number 26 in the nation to number 5 in the nation for average minimum salary. But also included in that, and our initial proposal was really just focusing on the minimum, is another $100 million for our more experienced teachers who are already making more than that average minimum. And so that's very exciting as well. Now, it was one thing to get that through the legislature. It was another thing to get them to put the money in the budget and lay that on the table. But they laid the budget on the table, I think, the second week of March, and we had a little bit of changes in everything happening in our world since then. And so it was quite a challenge to make sure, even though we fought for it, that we'd be able to actually do it in the budget, because what we're looking at now in terms of the budget that will be enacted by July 1st is just a different fiscal picture than what we were dealing with in January, February, and early March. But I can report, although we have not made every decision about the budget, I can report this will be there 100%. We're going to have to make tough choices, but this is important. So I want to thank the legislature for stepping up. I want to thank all our teachers, and particularly, hopefully, by doing something like this, it's going to entice some more people who may be young and thinking about what they want to do to maybe go into teaching. And it's not that not everyone, obviously you're not going to get rich doing it, just like police officers don't get rich, just like other things. You do it because you have a servant's heart, but it sure makes it easier if you have a good minimum salary and are able to make ends meet. So we think it's important, one, just to reward the people that are working hard, but two, really to help continue to recruit good people to fill the ranks of our teachers for generations to come. And I also thank a lot of the teachers for being very innovative during the period of distance learning. It was not an easy transition. I think Florida did better than just about any other state, but it's not the same as having a teacher standing in front of kids in a classroom. And so you had to innovate to do things. So thank you for doing that. But man, we really want to get the teachers to be back in front of the students, and we're working on doing that obviously for the fall. So thanks to everyone who's been involved. We're going to have some folks here who were really instrumental in doing this say a few things. And then I'll go sit and sign the bill into law. So one of the guys who was really supportive and really did a great job working with my office and Commissioner Corcoran was the president of the Florida Senate, Senator Galvano. So I want Bill to come up and say a few words.
Thank you very much, Governor. And let me underscore and highlight that this truly was an initiative that came from our great governor, Governor Ron DeSantis. He made this a priority. He challenged us in the legislature. And like he said, you know, these are bold initiatives, many of them, but this in particular. And so it was a challenge, and we took it up and enjoyed working with you, Governor, and your team. Personally, I enjoyed working with the great Speaker of the House, Jose Oliva, in helping this come to fruition. And in the Florida Senate, we've prioritized public education for many years, and so it was fit into that scheme when we went in to work with the governor and the commissioner to make sure that we were moving up the ranks to the top 10, number 5, in how we compensate our great teachers here in the state of Florida. I want to thank Chairman Stargell, who chairs the Education Appropriations Committee in the Senate, for her leadership. Chairman Flores, who has been an absolute champion for public education all the way back to our House days. Chairman Diaz, Manny Diaz, he could not be here today. I guess we're in his district, actually, but he did want to send his warm regards to all of you and his excitement for this initiative coming into being. And then I'm going to introduce our Appropriations Chair, because the governor can have an initiative, he can talk to me and the speaker about it, but then it becomes Chairman Bradley's headache. And he met the challenge and did a phenomenal job. Chairman Rob Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Governor, thank you for your leadership. President Galvano, thank you for your leadership. Chairman Stargell, the chairman of our Education Appropriations Committee, and Chair Flores as well. Thank you all for just the incredible leadership that was brought to bear. You know, I remember very distinctly in October, this was before COVID, which seems like a lifetime ago, in a gymnasium in Middleburg, Florida, in Clay County, in North Florida, and the governor came and he set forth a challenge. He said, this is going to be the year of the teacher. And he set forth a challenge to make Florida in the top 5 when it comes to a minimum teacher salary. And you know what? Promise made, promise kept. People said after COVID, this shouldn't happen. Should we even do this anymore? But today, it's happening. Promise made, promise kept. The year of the teacher is a reality. Thank you, Governor, and thanks everybody for making this happen. Now I'm going to introduce Commissioner Richard Corcoran, our fine Commissioner of Education.
Thank you. I just want to echo what's already been said. First, thanks to the legislature. As the governor said, they were fantastic. Also, thanks to Fern, Julio, all of Academica and Matter for hosting us, and the great job you do educating children. Also want to let you know, Governor, that I had the opportunity to talk to Superintendent Carvalho. He wasn't able to make it up. He's doing a food drive down in South Miami. But he wanted to say, please tell him how greatly appreciative I am for the great work that you've done with this legislation and the impact it's going to have on students across the state. So just want you to know that. But hey, what we say all the time, we're the education state, and we have the education governor. And you saw that with this piece of legislation. Not only does it move us to the top 5, it is the single largest teacher compensation package in the history of the state of Florida. And I'll steal some of the governor's lines, but he says all the time, what nobody argues, everybody knows it. The most important thing to the outcome of a student is the quality, great educator that stands before those children. That's what drives outcomes more than anything else. And all of us, I could say, anyone here on this whole stage, you say, hey, name me a teacher that absolutely impacted you, transformed your life, and put you on a path of success or gave you ideas for a vocation. Every single person right now has a teacher in their mind. Every single one of us. That's the impact of teachers. And to go out there and to reward teachers and to now, think about it, you graduate in Iowa, you graduate in Nebraska, and you can live in Florida and be in the top 5 in teacher compensation. The amount of teachers that are going to come here, and the ones that are here doing a great job, who've in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, they're stuck well below that 47.5. Now they're all moved up. It's just a fantastic package, and the real winner, the biggest winner from this initiative, Governor, and you know it, that's why you laid it out, is the school children. The kids are the winners. Yeah, the teachers are getting the money, but the kids are the winners because they're going to have tremendous quality education outcomes. And as we say, education is everything. Education is freedom. It's the uplifting of the human soul to the glorious light of truth. And that is going to be imparted to our children from this great piece of legislation. So, Governor, thank you so much for being the education governor in the education state, and thank you again to all our legislative leaders.
We're gonna go make it official.
I'll take one. Thank you, sir.
How was that interception?
Well, thanks again for having us. Also wanted to just provide an update and some reminders in terms of the fight against COVID-19. One of the things that we're reminding people of, and you're going to start seeing more of this in a public service announcement, is, and look, I understand people, people want to be out, they want to be social. We've obviously seen more of that as we've gone on, but there's certain little things that you can do, in addition to wearing the mask, practicing hygiene, social distancing. There's certain areas where this is just more transmissible. So, we're reminding people to avoid closed spaces with poor ventilation. If you know, in Florida, it's hot, but the sunshine, heat, and humidity is your friend. When you're in an enclosed space, particularly if you don't have social distancing, it's like a private party or something like that, and you're cramped in with bad ventilation, you're going to have more spread. Also, just crowded places generally when there's many people nearby, and then close contact settings. If you get right in someone's face and are having a conversation, you actually can transmit the virus. And of course, when all three of those are in one, a closed space with poor ventilation, crowded, and then close contact conversation and things of that nature, then that's definitely the number one type of event. We also want to continue to remind the folks who are in our more vulnerable categories, such as age 65 or above, folks that have serious underlying medical conditions. Make sure that you're and first of all, you've been very diligent throughout this whole time. Just keep being diligent about avoiding crowds, avoiding a lot of contact outside the home, particularly with some of the younger folks. I mean, what we're seeing in Florida is really rapid transmission in that 18 to 34 age group, and you're seeing a lot of cases come up. And granted, they weren't being tested at this level a couple months ago, but I also think they're testing positive at a higher and higher rate. So clearly, you have a lot of spread there. So folks who are in those vulnerable areas, in those categories, do your part. But then also, if you're in some of the maybe less risky demographics and those younger demographics, you need to do your part and make sure that you're not spreading it to people who are going to be more at risk for this. What we found, we did an interesting event yesterday at Orlando Health, and what they're seeing is a decline in the acuity of patients. In other words, they're preventing less severe. So in March and April, they had about 50% of their COVID patients on ventilators. Now they have like 2% of them on ventilators. It is skewed a little bit younger. And I think it's transmitting quicker right now than it did in March and April. So we got to figure out whether, if there's relationship or what, but you do see a lot of spread. And so doing some of these simple things, I think, will make a really, really big difference. And obviously, we have a lot that we want to do, once the COVID stuff is able to subside. So please do your part. You'll see these public service announcements coming out very soon about avoiding the 3 C's. And with that, take a couple questions. Yes, ma'am. So with the Department of Health, so the question about the COVID patients, the Department of Health does the cumulative total, so anybody who's tested positive and has been hospitalized at any time, is put out in their results. One of the things that, and we saw this yesterday with the folks down in Orlando, since March 1st, when you opened up, May 1st, when they opened up elective procedures, we didn't have any elective procedures between probably mid-March and the beginning of May. When you do that, what hospitals have done is they've tested everybody that comes in for emergent procedures, elective procedures, and if those persons test positive, they actually show up in the health as COVID hospitalized. But they really weren't hospitalized for COVID, they were hospitalized with COVID. So there's a little bit of, it's a little bit different from now when you look at it compared to what we were looking at then. And they estimate about 20% of the folks are simply people that tested positive but are asymptomatic. Yes, ma'am? No, absolutely not. Come on. You guys have been on the conspiracy bandwagon for months. You have no evidence for it. You need to move on. You really do. It's embarrassing at this point. Yes, sir. Well, we have a lot of masks. Mayor Jimenez did that very early. We've worked with the local folks. We've not prohibited that. At the same time, there's an enforcement that has to follow in that, and we have a lot of places in Florida where that would not be a good use of resources. So I think the approach where it's more tailored to the circumstances make more sense. Does the data show in like a rural county that that's better to do? No, it doesn't. Right, and the transmission is being driven in metro areas. You see that very clearly. You see that in Dade. You see that in Orange County. You see that in some of these other places. So they're doing that, and obviously they have to. They're going to have to worry about how you support that. You have police interactions. There's some sheriffs that said that they would not be willing to do that. But we advised from the beginning of May. We advised if you can't social distance, wear the mask, and if you're in face-to-face business. So that message has been very clear. It's been consistent. But ultimately, we've got to trust people to make good decisions. There's a 10-person limit in Miami-Dade County for gatherings right now. It's been that way the whole time. They're in phase 1. Have you seen any gatherings in the last 3 weeks that have been more than 10 people? Oh, okay, yeah. So, let's just be real. You have what you can put out, but then you also have a divergence between what the requirements are and what the compliance is. And I think what we've seen is, if you follow the guidelines, if you follow those phase 1 guidelines here, if you follow the phase 2 guidelines in other parts of the state, everything works out fine. We haven't had any problems at a business with individuals, when they followed the guidelines. I think you've seen, that's just been wearing, and people naturally want to do things. And I'm not even, so if I was 25, I'd be probably with them. That's just realistic. I can sit here and try to act like I wouldn't, but I remember what it was like then. And so it's not a question of, you this, but there's just a natural human, I think, a belief in wanting to do things like that. So, okay, well, thanks everybody. This is a really big day for teacher compensation, and we look forward to getting it to the teachers.